And I think the frustration with the language part is really, K-pop artists were told that they're not being played on radio in America because they're not singing in English. So more and more of them are singing more songs in English. And then now they're being told, well, actually, no, you're from Asia, so we're going to put you in this other category.
2026년 7월 29일 BTS가 그래미 어워드의 음악을 출품하지 않는다고 밝혔습니다. 뉴스를 통해 접하신 분들은 그래미가 베스트 아시안 팝뮤직 퍼포먼스 부문을 신설하며 불거진 상황이라는 점을 인지하고 계실 텐데요. 사실 이게 하루 이틀 된 이야기도 아니지만 이번에는 어째 분위기가 심상치 않습니다. 우리나라는 물론 아시아를 넘어 서구에서 특히 관련 보도가 이어지고 있기 때문입니다. 오늘은 특이하게 독일 공영 방송인 DW가 영어로 진행한 관련 보도를 가지고 왔는데요. DW는 글로벌 뉴스 네트워크로서 해당 사건에 대해 15분이 넘는 특집 보도로 다뤘다는 건 단순히 연예계 소식이 아닌 그 이상의 글로벌 이슈라는 것을 의미합니다. 편집한 영상 함께 보시고 추가로 1000개에 가까운 서구권 댓글 반응까지 함께 살펴보도록 하죠.
How do you insult one of the biggest pop bands on the planet? Apparently by trying to honor them. South Korean K-pop megastars BTS have just announced that they are boycotting next year's Grammys. It follows the introduction of a new award, Best Asian Pop Music Performance. BTS was widely tipped to be in the running for several of the Grammys' top honors for their recent comeback album, but now the group says it won't submit any music to any category. Each of its 7 members posted to Instagram, quote, "We hope that music is heard and loved for what it is, rather than being defined by region or language." Now, the Grammys boss, Harvey Mason Jr., said he, quote, "respected the decision, but that the Asian pop category was created to celebrate the depth and diversity and extraordinary growth of pop artistry coming out of Asia. More categories mean more artists' work is recognized." So where's the line between inclusivity and giving recognition when it's overdue and perhaps coming off as a little patronizing? For more on this, we're joined by Maria Sherman, music reporter at the Associated Press, and Professor Grace Kao, who among other things researches the sociology of music, especially K-pop, at Yale University. Welcome to the both of you.
Thank you for having me.
Maria, let's start with you. Walk us through this. Has any major act ever refused to submit to the Grammys like this before?
There have been quite a few instances of big artists kind of choosing not to submit to the Grammys. What happens and what makes this quite noteworthy is all 7 members posted the same message and really wanted to show kind of transparently that this is where their hearts are at. I'll say the biggest example is probably Morgan Wallen. He's a huge country star here in the United States. He rarely submits for Grammys, but doesn't make public statements about it and hasn't for a while. You'll frequently see him included on lists of biggest snubs of the Grammy Awards. But that's a sort of different, kind of unique situation. In the past, he's been disqualified and limited from award shows in the early 2020s because of a racial slur video that emerged. It was very specific, very to him. But there have also been instances of artists like Drake and The Weeknd who have both been public and critical of the Grammys. Drake in the past had withdrawn submissions of a few of his albums. And then, 2 years later, he submitted a joint rap album. And in the case of The Weeknd, he said he would no longer submit for Grammys in the early 2020s as well, criticizing the Recording Academy, calling it corrupt at one point, and then changing his tune a little bit. He submitted his last album for Grammys. He performed at the Grammys this year. So there is some pop culture history of this happening, but it still feels unique in that BTS is doing it for what seems to be a brand new category, or at least announcing it a month after this new category had been revealed.
Now, Grace, if we could cross over to you, what exactly do you make of BTS's move and of their statement that music shouldn't be divided by region or language?
Well, first of all, I think this award would have meant a lot for them, having a Grammy, because it's really one of the few remaining awards that they have yet to receive. It is a big sacrifice for them to do this. So I know that this must have hurt them deeply to have this category. And I just want to say that the award itself is just, I was reading the wording again and again. I can't quite figure out what it's for. Is it for a song? Is it for a body of work? It's sort of like for a body of work. But it's just like, here's an award for an Asian artists, so, miscellaneous. So I didn't quite understand the goal of the award either.
All right, now Maria, if you could talk us through the band's own history with the Grammys. 3 Grammy nominations and 0 wins, if I'm not mistaken.
They've actually been up for 5 nominations and haven't won. Their history at the Grammys is really part of a larger K-pop history at the Grammys. Before their first nomination in 2021, a K-pop act hadn't been nominated for the Grammys, which is quite interesting. They've performed at the Grammys twice, in 2021 and 2022. They've presented at the Grammys. It seems as though when we talk about even recognizing Korean pop acts at the Grammys, we're really talking about BTS as sort of the first of this wave, in many ways also in their recognition of K-pop as this huge musical force in the American music market as well, right? I'll also say that no K-pop act had ever won a Grammy before this year, and that was Golden from Netflix's hit K-pop Demon Hunters. So it's also an interesting conversation of, does that count as a K-pop award? So even beyond just BTS here, there's this really interesting kind of relationship historically with the Recording Academy and artists like BTS.
Now, Grace, as we were just hearing there, BTS has kind of a complicated relationship with the Grammys. No wins so far. So do you think that this new category, after it was announced, that it kind of felt like a consolidation prize to them?
Oh, absolutely. That it just, everyone feels like it's their turn, but, they just released this fantastic album, but the album actually has quite a bit of English. So, even thinking about this particular award, a category, it's again not clear whether the lead single Swim, which is completely English, does that count? What actually counts? And the idea that there's something called Asian music is a little bit odd to me. Again, we don't know what that is. So it did seem like this prize was sort of constructed perhaps for BTS. There are many wonderful artists out there, but I think of course there's no other act from Korea or other places in East Asia that are as prominent as BTS.
Now, Maria, from your reporting, do we know if any other K-pop artists or more broadly any Asian voices were consulted about forming this new category and this new award?
Yeah, this is the big question, right? The process of how new categories come to be at the Grammys is a bit complicated. What we do know is that there is a proposal process where somebody within the Recording Academy, likely a team of people, sort of present a proposal. They explain why they think this category should exist. It's voted on by members, it's evaluated by them, and submitted by them, of course, and then ultimately voted on by those members to see if it should move forward. And this happens every year. There's quite often rule changes. There's quite often new categories being introduced every year. However, any sort of transparency of which members are proposing this and which ones are voting on it, that's not sort of public record. We do know that the Recording Academy invites a lot of new members every year. This year they sent out, I think, 4,000 invitations, and actually EJ from K-pop Demon Hunters, who sings voice of Rumi, mentioned her acceptance of it. But beyond that, there is really no transparency, and that is only something that the Recording Academy would have to be willing to sort of volunteer.
Yeah, and that brings me back to the statement that we read out earlier where the Grammys boss basically said this was about celebrating K-pop and Asian music as opposed to separating it off. So if we take his statement at face value, let's compare it to the Latin Grammys, which were created in 2000 because many Latin artists felt overlooked by the main Grammys. But that is an entirely separate show rather than a new category. So Grace, what do you think? Do these type of awards celebrate artists or separate them?
Well, I think it's all a matter of timing, right? So I was imagining that perhaps the West's first introduction to K-pop was really Psy's Gangnam Style, and that was in 2012. And so I think, let's go back in time around that year. If there were introduction to best Asian pop or K-pop, I could see, well, this is a way to include other forms of music or music from other places. But, BTS has been around for a while now. They're as mainstream as it gets. So it just seems like it's a weird way to say, you're really included now, but actually we're going to try to make a new category that reminds us that you're actually foreign, you're not really one of us. And I want to go back to another point. I think some people have mentioned, why is it that they waited a month to announce this? And quite a few of their fans, I'm not taking credit for this, but their fans are known as ARMY. And quite a few ARMY on social media have said that it is linked to the song number 29 on the new album, which is basically this famous bell that's rung. And it's just the duration of the song is just that ringing. And again, they announced this on July 29th. So 29 had some sort of symbolism. BTS is really into having numbers and symbolism behind the numbers. So I just want to say it's not as if, they suddenly decided to do this. I'm sure they've been thinking about it for a while.
Yeah, Maria, actually, that's actually an interesting point. What do you think? Do you think BTS's relationship to their fans helped provoke this move on their part? I mean, in their statement, they didn't directly say why they were issuing this boycott. Are they motivated by some pressure from their own fan base?
Until BTS makes that connection explicit, we can only really speak to the timing, which I agree with Grace is quite interesting. Historically, when there have been new categories introduced by the Recording Academy at the Grammys that have been met with a little bit of sort of controversy or conversation from fans, timing is a big question. It kind of reminds me of the creation of Traditional and Contemporary Country Album of the Year last year, which happened right after Beyonce won for Cowboy Carter. A lot of people thought a Black woman wins for Best Country Album for the first time, and now they create this division. The Recording Academy says it's been introduced to further diversify and recognize the growing genre evolutions of country music. And I think the conversation that happened then is very similar to what we're seeing fans respond to now. I will say in that particular instance, I spoke to the Recording Academy and they told me that when a category is introduced, it's usually after years of conversation. Granted, don't know specifically about this new category. I'm hoping to get to talk to some of these people like the CEO, Harvey Mason Jr., to get some clarity. But the sort of timing of this award arriving the year where BTS has this huge comeback, I understand why fans responded the way they are. I can understand where that thinking comes from.
Okay, and Grace, finally, a question to you. What do you think that this moment tells us, if anything, about how the music industry thinks about categorizing non-Western artists?
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, dollars matter. And if you look at global physical sales, last year Taylor Swift was #1, but the next 19 albums are all K-pop or J-pop or Mandopop or Canton Pop's albums, mostly K-pop. So, Asia, music from Asia is here. It's been here for a while, and I think it would make sense for people in the West, in the US, to recognize this. And really, I count myself as a K-pop fan, and there are lots of people in the US that listen to K-pop. And I think the frustration with the language part is really, K-pop artists were told that they're not being played on radio in America because they're not singing in English. So more and more of them are singing more songs in English. And then now they're being told, well, actually, no, you're from Asia, so we're going to put you in this other category. So it's as if they can't win.
All right, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. But a big thanks to Professor Grace Kao from you.
댓글 반응입니다. 세상에 좋은 음악이 무엇인지 알려주기 위해 65세 노인들로 구성된 위원회가 필요하다고 상상해보세요. 그래미 시상식은 단순히 BTS를 잃은 것이 아니라 남아있던 아주 작은 신뢰도마저 잃은 것입니다. 그들은 특별 대우가 아닌 동등한 대우를 요구하는 것입니다. 유럽과 캐나다 팝 부문은 어디에 있나요? 사람들은 그래미 시상식이 외국인 혐오적이라는 사실을 인정해야 합니다. BTS 최고의 결정이었어요. 사기꾼 그래미는 BTS를 자기네 이기적인 목적으로 이용했어요. BTS 정말 잘했어요. 머지않아 그래미 시상식에 이성애자 백인 팝상, 동성애자 백인 팝상, 비동성애자 여성 팝상 등이 생길 겁니다. 그래미 시상식은 BTS의 인기에 무료로 편승하고 있었다. 그래미 측이 BTS를 시청률과 소셜미디어 인지도를 높이는 데 끊임없이 이용하면서도 마치 넌 할 일 다 했으니 이제 조용히 구석에 앉아있어 라고 말하는 것 같습니다. 음악은 음악이고 예술은 예술입니다. BTS는 그래미 시상식 본방송에 자주 초대되어 항상 마지막 순서로 공연하며 많은 관심과 시청률을 끌어모았지만 한 번도 수상한 적은 없습니다. 그래미 시상식은 BTS를 기념할 기회가 5번이나 있었습니다. 그런데 올해처럼 아무도 BTS를 무시할 수 없는 해에 이 사기꾼 같은 시상식은 BTS에게 최고상을 주지 않기 위해 형식적인 부분 하나만 만들었습니다. 그래미 시상식은 BTS가 앨범을 발매한 후에야 규칙을 변경했어요. 이미 BTS가 어떤 영향력을 발휘하고 있는지 그리고 아리랑과 BTS가 얼마나 성공했는지 알고 있었잖아요. 정말 꼼수 같아요. 명백히 차별입니다. 미국인들은 아시아인과 다른 국적의 사람들이 자신들보다 우월하다는 사실을 받아들이지 못하는 거죠. 너무나 억누르기 힘든 자존심입니다. BTS가 이런 행동을 한 건 정말 잘한 일입니다. 구시대적인 그래미 시상식은 이제 역사 속으로 사라질 것이다. 댓글을 보시면 알겠지만 이번 BTS의 보이콧은 그래미에 대한 역습으로 평가하는 사람이 많습니다. 실제 그래미 어워드는 지속적인 시청률 감소와 젊은 층의 이탈이라는 위기에 직면해 있었고 이를 이겨내고자 늘 BTS의 무대로 이슈를 몰았는데 정작 상은 주지 않고 새로운 카테고리를 신설했으니 대중음악 산업의 주도권을 가지고 있던 영미권 음악 산업 자체가 흔들릴 수 있다는 평가죠. BTS가 다른 비서구권 아티스트들에게 서구 시상식의 승인 없이도 글로벌 성공을 지속할 수 있다는 실질적 선례를 제시했다는 의견도 많고요. 또 제가 전에도 말씀드렸고 해당 영상에도 나타나지만 K-팝이나 BTS가 아시아 문화 전반을 대표하는 듯한 느낌을 받으셨을 겁니다. 서구 사회는 역사적으로 아시아의 복잡하고 다채로운 국가적, 언어적, 문화적 차이를 세심하게 구별하기보다 하나의 아시아로 묶어 다루는 경향을 보여왔고 이번 사태 역시 같은 맥락이라 볼 수 있는데요. 우리 입장에선 찝찝하지만 이게 역으로 BTS를 무시하는 게 아시아 전반을 무시한다가 맞물려 온갖 포화를 맞고 있습니다. 이게 분명 좋은 소식은 아닙니다. 다만 언젠가 한번 이런 일이 일어날 상황이었고 이 사건이 BTS를 넘어 우리 문화 산업 전반이 서구에서 전보다 대우받을 수 있는 계기가 될 수도 있지 않을까 하는 생각도 듭니다. 여러분은 어떻게 생각하시나요? 영상을 시청해주셔서 감사합니다. 구독과 좋아요는 영상을 만드는 데 큰 힘이 됩니다.